Welcome back to Point Betsie, boys and girls. Last time we read a story that was in the genre called historical fiction. If you're in 4th grade or above, or maybe even in 3rd grade, they talk about different kinds of stories. There are mysteries. Another genre is historical fiction, which is what this was. And that is always going to be something that really happened. But the author put stories around and made up some things like what the people said to make it a little bit more interesting. Well, today's story is about a real place, but it is not, the story is make-believe, so it's fiction. So we would put this in the genre of fiction, I think. Also, you can see that the time period is different. This was back in the late 1800s, shortly after the lighthouse was built. We didn't have the road back to Point Betsie. The way they got all of their supplies were usually on barges that came to the lighthouse every 3 or 4 months. And then they would have to hike through the sand dunes 7 miles into Frankfort to go to the store and get the other things that they needed. This story is more during the time in the late 1900s, early 2000s, when just before the Coast Guard sold the lighthouse to the county of Benzie. And people started taking care of it and fixing it, repairing it. And the Coast Guard still comes out and repairs the light. In fact, they were here a few weeks ago, but the light is now automated. And we take care of the lighthouse and make sure that the roof doesn't leak and make sure that it gets painted. In fact, we'll look for the picture in the book where the lighthouse keeper is actually out painting. Because remember, when they first built the lighthouse, they built it with bricks from Wisconsin, but they were the same color as the sand behind us. So during the daytime, the ship captains complained they couldn't see the lighthouse to know where they were because it's a good marker before they had GPS and all those kinds of things. So they painted it white, and whenever you put paint on bricks, it peels. And so that means that somebody's going to have to get out there and take care of it. And that's what we do every spring, and sometimes even in the summer, but you'll see that picture, so I want you to watch for that picture. This book was written by a lady named Anne Margaret Lewis, who grew up coming up here to Crystal Lake. And she went to the University of Michigan and has since moved up here, and she lives in Traverse City. And the illustrator, the person that draws all the wonderful pictures in this book, her name is Mary Frey, and she lives in Leland, which is north of here a little way. And they have some lighthouses up there too. Okay, the book is going to be about lighthouse fireflies. Do you know anything about lighthouse fireflies? I don't know about the lighthouse, but I had to Google fireflies last night. And if you decide to Google it, Google insects and then put a dash and put in fireflies. And the Smithsonian website has a lot of really interesting things about fireflies. I learned that they're bioluminescent, and most critters that are bioluminescent live in the ocean. The fireflies are the one that lives around that we can see. And not all fireflies get to light up. They don't all have bioluminescent. The ones that fly around at night do. And the bioluminescence scares away their predators so that they won't become prey and get eaten by one of those predators, because I think they're probably pretty delicious, but apparently bioluminescent doesn't taste very good. So I don't think we ought to go out and eat fireflies, especially not lighthouse ones anyway. Okay, so the story, you can see our tower in the back and we can see a young man there. And remember, this is fiction, so this didn't really happen. We lived in the lighthouse at the end of the beach. It needed repair and the roof often leaked. Dad was a loyal lighthouse keeper. Me, I was the wee little lighthouse sweeper. Why would you need somebody to sweep at our lighthouse? Remember, we're in sand dunes. And when it gets windy, sand goes all over the place. And when it rains, or when you come out of the water, sand sticks to your feet, and there would be sand all over the place. But look at those steps. You really go up those steps when you come to visit the lighthouse, if you come in the summer or the spring or the fall to visit us. And he looks like he's got a busy job trying to keep everything sand-free. Well, it was a hot, muggy summer night. The sun had just set in time for the fireflies' flight. It was the fireflies' turn to light up the night sky, flickering about like fireflies fly. And you can see the beautiful sunsets that we have behind Point Betsie. And then you got all the fireflies in the bushes. That would be so special to get to see that. They look like little stars twinkling down here on the ground. Well, I opened my jar hoping one would fly in. The bottom made from glass and the top made from tin. I decided to be as quiet as a mouse scurrying in the sand, silently setting my jar down to catch a firefly by hand. Have you ever caught bugs by hand? I remember catching crickets and grasshoppers and you had to really cup your hands so you didn't squish them or hurt them. But it would be very exciting to try to catch a firefly. In fact, when he peeked through his thumbs, he could see a light blinking. He slid him into the jar and the firefly began clinking and clinking. Mom called me inside. It's time to go to bed. I looked at my new friend. I'll take care of you, I said. And if you ever do catch a firefly, they are fun to keep in the jar overnight in your dark bedroom. You can see them light up, but you have to make sure that you have holes in the top of your jar, or you can even put some saran wrap over the top and poke holes through it with a toothpick. And make sure you put a piece of wet paper towel on the bottom so he's got some water to drink. And don't keep him for more than 1 or 2 nights. Let him go out and play with his friends when you're done enjoying him. My shiny new nightlight made me feel safe, like the boats in the harbor when coming in late. I noticed something different about this firefly. He was bigger than the others. I wondered why. His light shone brighter and longer than the rest. I looked through the glass and whispered, "You're the best." The next morning when I woke up, I looked over at my new little light. Firefly looked sad. I wondered if he was all right. He was flicking on the glass to the beat of SOS. "Help, let me out," he seemed to request. Do you know what SOS means? It means help me now. So it's part of Morse code that they really used a lot with lights. As I was cleaning the fireplace, cinders started to fly. You know what a cinder is? When you clean out a fireplace after a fire's been in there the night before, sometimes some of the hot coals are still there, and the little hot coals that go up in the air as you're scooping it out and putting it in the ash bucket will fly around. But he noticed a yellow glow out of the corner of his eye. "Psst," I heard coming from the windowsill. "Over here," cried a firefly with a high-pitched shrill. So hopefully he's being careful with those cinders when he looks over here to see the firefly. "Hey, you, little lighthouse sweeper," he peeped. "You've got King Firefly." Then he started to leap toward my head. He was angrily flying and buzzing around me, wildly crying. Oh my goodness. If you've got a bug flying around your head, buzzing and crying, there must be something very wrong. But he's looking at him going, isn't he? It's kind of his look on his face. So out there, but that firefly's not giving up, is he? He's going to get his attention and he has something to share with him. "You have the king of the fireflies who leads us to safety. I beg you, lighthouse sweeper, please set him free. What would you do if your lighthouse light broke down? How would you guide the boat safely to town?" That's a good question for that little boy to think. So here is the king of the fireflies who can light up the way for the other fireflies. And that's just kind of like what the lighthouse light does. It leads all the boats to safety too. I know his sparkling glow makes you feel safe at night. If you must have a firefly, take me. I'm almost as bright. Wow, he's willing to trade places with the king, isn't he? That's pretty cool. "Calm down, little firefly," I said with a sigh. "Just give me a moment. Just say thanks and goodbye." So that little firefly is very brave, isn't he? He's saying, if you'll let the king go, I'll be your firefly. But hopefully the sweeper of the lighthouse knows not to keep the firefly for more than a night or two. "There's no time to spare, little lighthouse sweeper," he said with a yelp. "There's a storm coming in and fireflies need the king's help." And if you look at that stormy sky, that's the way the sky gets here at Point Betsie a lot in October and November. We get a lot of storms come in suddenly, and look at the big waves. And the winds get so strong. That'd be kind of scary if you were a little firefly to try to fight that big strong wind. "Well, he must lead us to safety, back to our firefly home, the floor made of sand and the walls made of stone. King Firefly has the brightest firefly light to keep all of his firefly friends close in his sight." So he's the one that knows how to get them all to safety. So he is pretty important. So it's pretty good that that young man decided to let that firefly go. So I think he's told him goodbye. "I released King Firefly into the wind, watching the stormy waters with the boats coming in. King Firefly was free with his light shining bright, but the lighthouse was not on this dark, stormy night. Off to the lighthouse so quickly I ran to help the lighthouse keeper. I know that I can." Oh, that would be very serious on a stormy night to have the lighthouse go out. Oh my. Lightning was dancing all over the place. I could see the worry on Dad's rugged face. Oh my, and look, he has a wrench and he's got grease all over him. He's been working hard on the motor that turns that big Fresnel lens and makes the light blink and glow way out into the water. Dad said, "I've got bad news, my son. The lighthouse light is finally done." That's not a good thing in the middle of a storm, is it? "The equipment is too old and the signal won't blink. There has to be a way to save the boats." So I started to think, oh, and look at, he can imagine all those boats out there and those big waves, they're gonna capsize and tip over and the water's cold and dangerous. What would you do if your lighthouse light broke down? That's the question that the king asked him, wasn't it? How would you guide the boat safely to town? So he's thinking, I remembered what the firefly had said, but just then I felt something land on my head. As he started to fly around my head in a ring, I realized it was the one and only, the Firefly King. You answered my SOS and were loyal to me. I am here to return the favor, you see. So the Firefly King came back. Maybe he's going to know how to fix the light, or at least have a solution. What do you think he could do? Because one little firefly light isn't going to be enough for those boats to see way out there. Let's see what he does. Well, I watched as he headed toward the lighthouse stairs, all a twinkle. He stopped for a moment and let out his SOS signal. You know what an SOS signal is? It's a way that you can talk, and it's a code that you can talk and send messages to other people, either with light or with sound or little electric signals. So this firefly is sending an SOS signal, and SOS means help now. It means emergency, come fast. Then, in by the thousands came all his firefly friends, twirling up the lighthouse stairs to the top. They would tend. Wow, they're going right up those stairs, all the way up to the top, up to that Fresnel lens. What are they going to do? Look at that. They set the lighthouse signal all through the storm. It was at that very moment that lighthouse fireflies were born. That's the make-believe part, but wouldn't it be nice if there really were fireflies that lived in lighthouses and helped us out? I said gratefully, "Thank you, King Firefly and all of your friends." King Firefly and the lighthouse sweeper were friends forever. The end. So that's the end of today's story. And I would love to have you come back and visit the next time we read another story. Thank you for coming to Point Betsie, and I hope you enjoyed this. Bye-bye.